As he said, my name's Angela's son, and I've been working in sports as a broadcaster for over 13 years or so, something like that. I've worked with all different networks, ESPN, Fox Sports, Tennis Channel, American Ninja Warrior, and it was interesting because I have kind of two different veins where there's the environmental conservation. I did the documentary Plastic Paradise, as you mentioned, and to see the sort of disconnect between sports and sustainability, and the disconnect with sports organizations and the general public with the issues of sustainability, and specifically, in my experience, ocean plastics. I just finished up a season with the Oakland A's for NBC Sports, and happy opening day. It's happening right now. So clearly I am not there right now, so I'm not working with them anymore. But I got to work with the A's Green team and got to really kind of give sort of comments and ideas, and it was really great to collaborate and brainstorm sort of ways to use sports for good. And so with that, we have an amazing panelist, which I'm going to bring up. We have, I don't know if they're coming up right now, but I will introduce him. Reece Pacheco is the Executive Director for the World Surf League's Ocean Conservation and Nonprofit, which just launched, which is called WSL PURE. And he is, since leaving behind a career as a leader in startups and tech, Reece has sailed and studied plastic pollution with 5 gyres, and he's also helped rewild farmland with Conservación Patagonica, and has cleaned beaches and defended surf breaks, a surf rider. He's been an avid traveler, surfer, and ocean lover, and originally from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. He grew up idolizing the likes of famed oceanographer, discoverer of the Titanic, and Alta Sea partner, Dr. Robert Ballard. So, Reece, thank you for joining us. And next, I want to bring up Feben Yohannes, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of the Association of National Olympic Committees, World Beach Games, which is going to happen in San Diego in 2019, a new multi-sport event born from the Olympic movement. Feben and her team have crafted this cause overlay under the motto Clean Water, Clean Games. And she was born and raised in Ethiopia, an economist by education. Feben is also the founder and managing principal of DELFE, Delphi Group, did I say that right? And she's also co-authored and crowdsourced the book, Innovating Women, The Changing Face of Technology. Feben also sits on the U.S. board of Imagine One Day, with a mission to provide access to quality education in Ethiopia, and lots more. So many accolades both of these two have up here, and so much information to soak in. So we are going to kick it off, and hopefully the goal of this panel is really to learn about how we can become that bridge for sports businesses to make that social and environmental impact where we are in the workplace. So thanks, guys. Oh, is this one on? Hey.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for staying with us through the last panel. So guys, first off, I just kind of wanted to start off, for both of you, this question is, you came from a background of startups and technology. How have you taken that experience and put it into the positions that you are in now? So Feben, if you want to lead that.
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to Veep. I attended a day and a half of this program, and honestly, I'm fairly new to the sustainability world, but I felt like I went to school, It was so fascinating, and the fact that, our panel is at the very end allows us to, and allows me actually to see all the incredible innovations out there and the work that has been done. And so for us to be able to incorporate that into what we're doing. So with that, my background in startup and my passion for startup and technology, really, I think it's the behavior that you develop with that. And with the Clean Water, Clean Games, when we came up with that, it's the idea that anything that we do in this multi-sport event has to be more than sports. We have to create value that will sustain and that will create an impact that is completely outside of what we're doing. And I think that mentality and the way we approached it is what I feel I brought from that background.
And Reece, what would you you like to?
Startups, yeah. And firstly, thanks to everyone for sticking it out, the last panel of the day. You guys are great. We stand between you and beer, I think. So we'll try to keep it short. But yeah, my background's in startups. I was early stage co-founder of 2 startups in New York City in the video space. And I think the blessing and the curse of that is that you become decent at a lot of stuff, you know? You just have a very kind of, you're a Swiss Army knife. You're like okay at a lot of stuff. Really, really broad skill set, which for me is really important because Pure sits inside of the World Surf League and I work cross-functionally across the whole org. So I'm daily dealing with partnerships and marketing and the biz dev team and the events team. And you just have to have a very sort of like, okay, context, focusing on this issue right now, and then context switching over to some completely different issue, dealing with the nonprofit partners that we work with, understanding their issues, and just basically learning really quickly and getting up to speed really quickly so you can tackle that issue and move on to the next thing. Because we work at like hyper speed in the World Surf League, so I have to kind of bring that startup mentality and startup speed to everything we do there.
Can you give us a little overview? What is the mission of WSL Pure in a nutshell?
Sure. Should I back up and say how many people know what World Surf League is and know competitive? All right, cool. So we got some surfers. So it's the competitive body of surfing. And then within that, PURE stands for Protecting, Understanding, and Respecting the Environment. And so it's a 501c3 that sits inside of the WSL. And our mission is to inspire, educate, and empower the global surf community to fight to protect our oceans. And we do that through collaborating with nonprofit organizations to help tell their story to our audience. That's the highest level. And then at the same time, I'm also helping try to green up all of our practices with our events as well, which I think we're going to dig into more in a little bit.
Yes, we'll dig into that more. And Feben, can you give us an overview of the World Beach Games and what that will be?
So right before that, there's this 4-letter word, ANOC. ANOC World Beach Games. ANOC stands for the Association of National Olympic Committees. ANOC is one of the 3 pillars of the Olympic movement. So the 2 others are the IOC and the international federations. So each country in the world has a National Olympic Committee. So for the US, it's the USOC. So the amalgamation of these NOCs creates ANOC. ANOC typically does not run events. It's the IOC that runs events. This is the first event for ANOC to create. So they're not really an outward-facing entity. But the value of ANOC is the 206 member countries. When they came up with the World Beach Games, it was a way to see, you know, realizing that the Olympic movement requires a little bit of expansion into new sports and the new demographics, the millennial and Gen Z that are really connected to, you know, entities like WSL, that the Olympic movement is almost missing a little bit. So they had to really create an environment which brings in these new sports, new demographics, and from there, San Diego was one of the cities that bid for the games. I'm the head of marketing for the Exploratory Foundation, and our entity bid for the Olympic Games as well for San Diego, and this was one of the games that we went after. And we created the messaging that San Diego should be the first inaugural place where these games should take place, because there's an authenticity to San Diego, the active lifestyle, the innovation, and all of those elements make up that DNA that the ANOC World Beach Games require. So it's almost coming at the, you know, foundation level of the Summer Olympics. So think of it that way. So from there, our entity created, you know, we won the games, which is great, in 2015. We're still on a foundation level, that's why you don't know much about it, but from this point on, we will. So as an organizing committee, I led the messaging that, you know, we have to make sure that these 206 countries and these games are going to have value. So that's where the Clean Water, Clean Games concept comes from.
And how important do you guys both think with WSL and the World Beach Games, how important is it for you guys to be leading the way for other sports to be good stewards, considering that your office is the beach and the ocean?
Me? Yeah, I mean, you all know all the facts, and if I were to say that every other breath comes from the ocean, you're like, yeah, we all know. We're all on the same team here, so you guys know how important it is, but I think for us as surfers, it's just super authentic to what we do, and we're going around to the world's best waves and in some of the communities around the world where, I mean, these people are on the front lines of, sea level rise and climate change, these small communities, and so for us, we're seeing them face to face, and so it's hyper important for us to step up and be good stewards and do what we can as an organization, and it's very authentic to who we are and what we want to be. So, yeah, was that.
Well, I guess maybe to dive in a bit more, like what does that actually look like specifically for WSL when you are at these events? Maybe you can share an example of. I know we had talked a little bit about waste diversion and alternative energy.
Oh, some of the things we're actually doing, right?
Yeah.
So I've only just started in December, but I was happy to see that we're actually taking pretty great steps to green up our events. Already using biofuels in places where we can. Already avoiding single-use plastics everywhere we can. Setting up water refill stations and encouraging people to bring bottles. Trying to use recycled PET in some of our staging and everything, so that we're not creating new materials and then trying to find ways to recycle all of those. So I was pretty impressed with some of the strategies in place, and now it's about going beyond that to, okay, how can we get to essentially a neutral footprint and then beyond, and say, can we think about carbon credits for our travel footprint, stuff like that. So we've got a big horizon ahead of us. It's a long way to get to. We have a lot of people who travel all over the world, so it's a big footprint, but that's something that I want to work on long term. Yeah, those are the major ones.
And Feben, you had mentioned clean water, clean games. What does that actually translate to for you? What will you guys be initiating as you are planning the first World Beach Games in 2019?
So we are, and we're talking about this with Reece, we are in such a good position. So when we think about clean water, clean games as a cause overlay, it's not an afterthought. This is not a tagline. The reason why, I'm going to be spending time and energy, and not only in learning, but training our people as well, is so that we prepare ourselves. We've got about 18 months of lead time until the games, and that is the time when we can actually really have material discussion, planning, bring in, creating a consortium of thought leaders to say, here is a platform that's going to be, you're going to be able to touch 206 countries with your messaging. What would you like to say to them? So from a clean water standpoint, we know that, I found this data actually, 4 out of 10 people in our world are lacking access to clean water. And I'm originally from Ethiopia, so my country of birth is one of those countries. And it's really a truly moving situation, because through my foundation work that I do with the Imagine One Day, we open schools in the most rural part of Ethiopia. And this past experience that I've had was just eye-opening on multi-level. So I'll tell you why. One, when we opened these schools at the most remotest place, we actually, our team invests in building the schools, and those schools don't even have roads to get to them. So we have to actually build the roads to get to those communities to build the schools. And when we do that, we also, create wells, because we know that mostly girls, do not get education because they have to walk, miles and miles on end to support their families. And so we make sure that we remove all of these obstacles. But the one thing, so access to clean water is a definite issue, that those 206 countries, ocean preservation may not be a cause for them, but access to clean water is. So the other point that I saw on my travels is the amount of plastic bottles, you guys, I can't even tell you. In the most rural part of Ethiopia, so there's no roads, but there is a litter of plastic bottles out there. And it was so sad for me to see that because I went after 17 years and there was trash, but there was biodegradable trash back in the day. Now we've got, these plastic bottles literally littering our world, essentially. So the Clean Water, Clean Games would be, access to clean water. How do we ensure that, we bring those people to the table and have that discussion? And the ocean preservation, it goes without saying you're all part of that environment and that community. That's something that's fairly new to me. And as I'm sitting here, I'm actually aware of how much that would impact. So the sports that we have are 5 water sports, 5 beach, and 5 urban sports. And so we live on the beach. And so that is something that we want to tackle as well. So we'll bring those constituents on the platform as well.
Awesome. And we
Can I just real quick?
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
so lucky, as we kind of commented before, you're so lucky to be in the early planning stages because you can make the right choices ahead of time versus trying to retrofit a solution to an existing plan. Like as we were chatting before this panel, and I was saying how some of our events have been going on for 20 or 30 or 40 years, and so they kind of have a way that they've been done, and so now we're trying to change and bring in new solutions, and they're going, well, that's not how we've always done it. I'm like, I know, but we got to do it now. But you're so lucky because you can plan it in from the beginning, and I'm jealous.
Well, I guess going off of that, Reece, you were talking about managing expectations too. So was that one of the things that you've gleaned in experience, kind of?
Yeah, I think, I think sometimes people get hung up on trying to do everything right all at once instead of just doing what can you do better. I think that some of the hopes coming in when I came into this role were like, oh great, now all of our events will be green and we're good. And it's like, it's not going to work like that. I can't solve this overnight. If it was that easy, you wouldn't need me or wouldn't need people to spend a full-time job on this. So I've had to kind of help people realize that we can just be a little bit better every single time, and that's the best way to do it. I think that it's about creating habits and just saying, all right, this event, our goal is here. Next event, let's be a little bit better, and we've seen that. A stellar example is our Vans Triple Crown series in Hawaii. We work with Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii there. Great group. They do an excellent job with waste diversion. They report each year, and we've seen the numbers each year get better and better and better, to where we're now diverting like 75% or something like that at our last Triple Crown in December. And so we were really happy with that. We're composting, and that's a really great number, and we're going to continue. Thanks, Toon. Yeah. So we're going to continue to push that, and we'll use that as a gold standard across the rest of our events. Certain venues just pose certain challenges. Certain places we have clean drinking water supplies. Certain places we have to really figure out a filtration system. So I'm just trying to make sure everyone understands that. So it's like set expectations appropriately and then try to exceed them if we can.
Yes, and that's what I was thinking about that as well. I have lofty goals, okay? So
Yeah.
with that, I have to watch it. I have to watch the statements that I'm making and how we're approaching this, because yes, we can do so much with this opportunity. We have to be careful in setting the expectations and ensuring that we meet them. Ultimately, my budget is $40 million of operating budget that I have to raise through sponsorship. So we don't have any one city or country writing the check, as you know, in the US. In other countries, the government actually supports those bids. So within that realm, what we want to do is there's that conversation of having constituents coming in and sharing their message, like this kind of platform, and creating that space. But then there's also what WSL is doing in terms of event specific. How do you run those events to be as sustainable as possible? So strawless, event is what we're pushing for. Dune? Yay!
You can do it. We do it, so you can do it.
We can do it. But then other than that, with the sponsorships and the sponsors that we're bringing on board, we want to bring on folks that are aligned with our thought process as much as we can. Of course, we're not going to say no to some other sponsors, but as much as possible, it's kind of really showcasing that, yes, each of these big entities have a cause overlay within their company, which may be an afterthought, but really making it fun, like one presenter said, and then creating a situation where, using data as a backup to showcase that it's not a deficit, but it's an added bonus in terms of, approaching it from a financial standpoint.
And if you guys can talk a little bit about the marketing strategy, I guess, what you'd like to implement and what you already implement in what types of media are important to you. There's a lot of talk about authenticity and reaching people through socials, and everybody's on every single social realm on different types of audiences. For your audience and also just for the general public, what types of media are important to you to reach them, and what is the strategy in terms of on the nonprofit side and also on the clean beach, clean game side you'd like to put it into play? Whoever likes to take it.
I'll go. Yeah, so going back to the managing expectations and now talking about the marketing, I think as I kicked off, we were already doing a lot of great things, but we weren't putting it out there because there was a little bit of, I think, of a fear of being called out for not being good enough. And now we're starting to tell those stories because I think that we can show off that we've done some great work and start to market what we're able to do. And what we've seen is that every time we talk about the good stuff we're doing, all of our fans cheer. They get super excited. And our first little project that we released earlier this month in March, that's right, it's still March. I've been all over this month. Was a project with one of our surfers, Ace Buchan. He brought a group to us called Take 3 for the Sea. Some of you may be familiar with them. They're a really great little group out of Australia. They do fantastic work, and they have such a simple message. Go to the beach, take 3 pieces of trash, throw it in the bin, take a picture of it, share it on social media. So Ace brought that group to me and said, this is something I want to support. He then brought his 5-year-old daughter, Ruby, to the shoot and brought her and put her in the video, and it was just this really beautiful, super authentic story because he really cares. And so we have that opportunity to tell these authentic stories. And, like Dune was speaking about Lonely Whale, they're another one of our partners. And so they're able to bring in authentic celebrities into their storytelling. And so we're going to look for ways that we can collaborate on that and do this together because it's so natural for surfers to want to tell this story. And now as more people get educated, everyone cares about it. So everyone should tell this story, which is really cool. And we're happy to do that because it's part of going to the beach, it's part of being a surfer, it's part of being an ocean lover. It all just makes perfect sense. So it's easy for us. Not easy. It's not easy, it's hard, but it's a natural story to tell. So we're excited to start sharing that with our fans and the broader audience.
So similar to WSL and Reece, I think from a platform standpoint, the digital platform and social media plays such a huge role. If your messaging is so authentic and has a little bit of a twist to it and fun, so I think Dune's presentation really showcased that. With a team of 3, that's what they were able to accomplish, is putting the message out there. We also have the opportunity to approach it from the athlete side and then as well as on the country level. So we're going to leverage all of those mechanisms that gets that message across on the ground in all of those countries. So.
And what are some of the resources you guys mentioned? Take 3 for the Sea and also Lonely Whale, and what are other nonprofits that you draw from to help you implement strategy and plan, or who are you looking at too?
So yeah,
that's why you're here too as well.
That's
Connect.
I've had many conversations that were really wonderful, and I'm going to have some side conversations with some of them. But just off the cuff, Serge Dedina is the mayor of Imperial Beach. He was also part of our bid process, a small town near San Diego, city of San Diego. So Serge was my first go-to person because I know him through my work relationship and so on. So Serge and I sat down with his team, and I had a one-page sort of structure of how I want this advisory board to come together. I'm just a vehicle, and I want to create that space for those thought leaders in that space to come together and really make something out of it. So I'm going to sort of, pull back a little bit and kind of let that process take place. So Serge is one of our team leaders that would, sort of lead the advisory board. And I see many folks that may join that advisory board. So that's how we're proceeding with it.
Sure, yeah. So I was lucky I showed up and we actually already had some great partners on board, which is really nice when I joined. Lonely Whale is one of them. They've been doing a fantastic job. Others are NRDC, Bloomberg Philanthropies, the Center for Climate and Life at the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory run by Columbia University. That's all one. To nerd out, they have the world's largest collection of Earth core samples, like thousands from across the ocean around the world. It is a fantastic thing. You get to see geologic time in 2-meter segments from the Earth. So they're one of our early science partners. Surfrider Foundation is really great. I know Chad was here yesterday. Take 3 for the Sea. We have another small group called the North Shore Community Land Trust, so a very local group working in Hawaii. So we really range from small local grassroots organization to big philanthropic foundation to a team like Dunes, being disruptive on the media side. So a wide range of partners, and we're going to continue to expand that over time. We're not meant to be just like 2 or 3 partners and honed in on a couple issues. We're meant to be very broad, just like all the issues that we all face, because the issues the ocean faces are greater than all of us, and so it takes all of us working together to make a dent here. So we're happy to be super collaborative.
As you all know, San Diego is actually the second largest cluster of clean technology. So the clean tech community is very strong in San Diego. The idea is, the Clean Water, Clean Games advisory board will have clean tech, will have academia, will have, private philanthropy and folks that, from various aspects. So I wanted to add the clean technology piece in there.
Very cool. Well, I wanted to take a couple of minutes we have just to open up if anyone has questions in the audience.
Their questions is, when is beer? Soon.
Beer is soon.
So I have a question for you, Reece. I hear when the Olympics comes to town for certain cities, it often leaves this crazy infrastructure that just becomes either wasteful or a ghost town. But I know you guys put stuff up and break them down, but what really is the waste footprint of each event?
So the question is, what is the waste footprint of each event?
Yeah, which events are the most wasteful and which ones are the least?
So that would depend on audience size. So then it's about accessibility to a major city, I guess. I'm still kind of getting my hands around every single event. I've only been to a few. I can tell you that we're going to Bali this year. We're going to have an event in Bali, and we're talking about the championship tour. So we have around 12 or 13 majors, and then we also have about 160 qualifying series events. So we have a ton of events. Those are much smaller footprints. The championship tour, speaking about those events, like Bali will probably only have a couple thousand attendees, whereas when we ran our event in Rio a couple years ago, we had 100-something thousand. And the Vans US Open of Surfing has huge numbers because it's right here and it's very accessible. I don't actually know the numbers, and I don't know specifically what you're asking. You're asking for overall carbon footprint or overall waste, because you talked about structures.
Yeah, structures and waste, leave behind the waste. If you were to walk there the next day,
Right.
is Huntington going to be of course, yeah, Huntington looks probably crazy the day after, but how does that compare to another event elsewhere?
So we run cleanups when we run certain events. We're trying to work with people on the ground to make sure that it's as clean as possible, ahead of time. And then also, in Bali, Bali is unfortunately a very trash-ridden place right now. So we're figuring out ways that we can be effective there year-round and not just come in and run our event and take off, but how can we help the groups on the ground in some way that's meaningful, whether that's through education, awareness, infrastructure, whatever. can't say that I have a perfect solution there yet, but that's what I'm working on, is how can we be an effective citizen to that region of the world, not just for the 2-week period that we're there. Because the last thing we want to do is show up to an event site, trash it, and take off. So we try to work with the local parks departments. Like in Australia, we work with the regional parks departments and regional surfing governing bodies to make sure that we're trying to not have fans on the dunes at Bell's Beach, so that they stay in the footpaths to make sure that they're not eroding dunes or trashing the native species, stuff like that. So we really do make an effort there. I'm still new and getting my hands around it, but yeah, maybe next year I'll come back and report back to you on what it is.
Well, I worked at the Bells event before, and also the Vans U.S. Open one. And I've also worked at X Games with in Aspen and stuff, and seeing how they've tried to mitigate or divert waste, or work with Reprieve or certain companies and nonprofits. Sustainable Coastlines has done a great job with Triple Crown. So at least from the broadcast side and the behind the scenes side, on our end, I've seen that they've changed things. In certain other aspects, I think what I mentioned before with the NBC Sports and the Oakland A's, even our press room, we still had tons of plastic utensils and plastic single-use everything, really. And I think it behooves all of us to just vocalize personally too, just from like each one of us, we all have our platforms and voice to do that. So, I mean, I'm clearly not in the position that you guys are at, but at least in my little broadcast side, I've seen changes throughout. And that's why I keep saying it goes back to sort of the marketing and messaging, not just internally, but towards the public. Like, how do we engage them to make sure they divert the waste correctly? Yeah, we try to engage fans about it as we're there. I can tell you that we have metal cutlery for our broadcast team and for catering at all of our events, and we try to make sure we do things like that. Shoot, there was another thing I wanted to tell you. I lost it now. Carbon footprint.
What's that?
Carbon footprint.
No, I was thinking something else about broadcast. Anyway, I'll catch up with you after. I have more to say on it.
I think we have time for one more question.
I don't want to hog it.
Yeah. So the ANOC World Beach Games are going to be all temporary structures. So we won't have any permanent structures. Our games are going to take place in Mission Beach. So we're going to use existing setups, like the Belmont Park, for example, is going to be my hospitality destination of sorts. So that's the plan, and then so I think we've learned a lot from the wastage that has been seen globally, and things are moving in the right direction. The Olympic 2020 agenda really focuses on sustainability. So I think the message is loud and clear. From our end, though, the beach games are going to be light. No permanent infrastructure. But then it's beyond that, right? I think the ocean preservation and ocean issues that we're having, and as I told you, East Africa and the bottle, littering issue over there is going to affect us all, So this message is a global message, and it has to be at that level.
Yeah. I think we are out of time. We have one more? Okay.
Reece, I got a question for you. Just to clarify, from my understanding, when the WSL does their events, it's Hurley, it's Vans, the Billabong Pro, they set it all up. Do you guys, I know I've seen the basic guidelines for you, but do you guys have green guidelines? For example, created like Heaven to say you can only use this cup, this much, you can only create this much waste, we don't do any straws,
Yeah.
Not you guys.
Yeah, so we have policies, and we're working to make them even more strict, basically, is the short answer. So yeah, we say reduce single-use plastics. We use biofuels where we can. Like I said, we even down to our jerseys. Our jerseys are made out of recycled plastic. And now we're trying to make it a more formalized criteria that we use with all of our partners for the events that we run. Yeah.
Because you're only the governing body, so you could put these guidelines, strict guidelines on them and
Right.
saying, create a time frame and saying either if you don't comply by that day, which
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And then we also now have venues that we control with the surf ranch. So with that, that's a potential for us to really set a new standard, which is exciting, but also super challenging. Oh, I remembered what I was going to say. Right down to our office, we've given up on individually packaged snacks. So we used to have like granola bars and all that junk. Like our whole team now, it's just we have bulk nuts and pretzels or something like that. Like that's how like core we've gotten, even in our own office. Much to the anger of a lot of the editors who work long hours and just want like a sugary snack. They're like, we don't have any more good snacks, but it's probably better for our health anyway.
So
Yeah, exactly. So that's how far we're trying to go.
Yeah, internally in the office. No need for Whole Foods, just go to
We're just,
Bay Street.
Yep.
There you go. Well, I want to thank Reece and Feben. It's been very informative and very interesting to hear your thoughts. And thank you guys so much for staying. And thank you, Vipe, for inviting all of us to this amazing summit. And woo!